Okay, so if you've ever felt like true happiness is this, elusive prize that's just constantly slipping through your fingers, well, you are definitely not alone. Let's dive right into this explainer and look at the actual science behind building a happier, more meaningful life, specifically using the research of Arthur C. Brooks. Today, we're going to unpack the literal architecture of well-being and explore exactly how you can construct a much more fulfilling life, brick by brick.
The idea that happiness is not the goal, but rather a direction, completely shatters our biggest misconception about this whole topic. I mean, think about how often we tell ourselves stuff like, oh, I'll be happy when I finally get that promotion, or I'll be happy when I find the perfect partner. The science tells us this is a huge, fundamental framing error. You never just arrive at complete happiness.
Which brings us to our first core concept: direction, not a destination.
So to move in that right direction, true well-being actually requires a balanced diet of 3 specific macronutrients. You've got enjoyment, satisfaction, and purpose, all working together in harmony. Brooks defines happiness not as just one single fleeting feeling, but as a combination of these 3 things. Think about it. If you only have enjoyment but no purpose, life starts to feel pretty empty, right? But if you have purpose without any enjoyment, you're just going to burn out. You absolutely need all 3 to sustain a fulfilling life. Now, a really crucial point here is understanding the difference between pleasure and enjoyment. Mere pleasure is super fleeting. True enjoyment, on the other hand, comes from intentionally adding meaning to your experiences. Like eating an amazing cupcake all by yourself on the couch. That's a pleasure. But sharing that exact same cupcake with people you deeply care about while laughing and creating a ridiculous memory, that transforms it into enjoyment. We literally have to actively upgrade our pleasures into enjoyment. All right, let's move on to our next section. Master your internal world. Your emotions are signals, not dictators. I love this. Think of your negative emotions, things like fear, anger, or sadness, as a check engine light on your car's dashboard. They are literally just there to help you survive and learn, not to boss you around and dictate your behavior. When that light comes on, you don't panic and crash the car, right? And you also don't just ignore it. You observe it, you read the information it's giving you, and then you decide on the smartest course of action. But to read those dashboard signals effectively, you need a tool called metacognition. And that simply means stepping back to observe your emotions happening, almost as if they were happening to someone else. It's the incredibly powerful practice of basically thinking about your thinking. By doing this, you create this vital little gap between feeling an emotion and actually acting on it. You're refusing to be controlled by impulsive reactions. And you can practice this right now in 3 really concrete steps. First, hit pause before you react. Second, label the feeling without judging yourself. And third, consider a completely different perspective. For example, if you feel anger bubbling up, just pause. Literally say to yourself, I'm experiencing anger right now. Just that simple act of labeling instantly reduces the emotion's power, and it lets your rational brain slide right back into the driver's seat. Once you've paused, it's time to use emotional substitution. Now, you aren't just sweeping negative feelings under the rug here. Rather, you are actively choosing to redirect your attention to a constructive alternative. It's a totally proactive shift in your mental focus. You literally rewire your own emotional landscape when you actively choose to practice gratitude, find humor in the struggle, and extend compassion to yourself and others. Keeping a daily gratitude journal, or even just forcing yourself to find a reason to laugh during a totally awful day, serves as a massive antidote to fear and sadness. Look, it takes practice, for sure, but the results, they are entirely transformative. Okay, moving right along to the next big piece, the power of outward focus. There is such a stark contrast between looking inward and looking outward. By limiting your time comparing yourself to everybody else on social media and instead completely immersing yourself in helping people, you sort of forget yourself and you find genuine joy. The research is crystal clear on this. When we reduce our self-obsession and actually practice active listening or perform simple acts of kindness, we experience an immediate, measurable boost in our own happiness.
Next up, let's talk about cultivating deep connections. Within our family dynamics, it is so essential to remember that conflict isn't a failure. It's actually a perfectly normal opportunity to grow closer, assuming you approach it with open, honest communication. Look, families are complicated and disagreements are completely inevitable. But avoiding those difficult conversations, that just robs you of the chance for much deeper understanding and connection.
You can protect your family from what Brooks calls the negativity virus by practicing unconditional forgiveness, showing real appreciation, and evolving together over time. Holding on to past grievances is honestly just poisoning your own happiness. By deliberately creating shared traditions and being willing to adapt as your family dynamics naturally change, you reinforce that unconditional love that makes family such a powerful, heavy anchor in our lives. Now, when it comes to friends on this journey, you absolutely must prioritize a few deep, vulnerable connections over a giant superficial network. Having hundreds of acquaintances on social media is not going to support you during a real crisis. True friendship requires shared experiences, mutual trust, and the courage to be authentically known. Sharing your incredible strengths, yes, but also your hidden weaknesses and imperfections. Finally, let's look at our last major section: work, meaning, and transcendence. Arthur C. Brooks beautifully describes meaningful work as love made visible, which is just a great reminder that our jobs can actually be a profound daily source of happiness. Now, this doesn't mean you need to be out there literally saving the world every single day. It just means finding a career path that aligns with your personal values and lets you serve others in some capacity. Because while money and status, your extrinsic rewards, obviously matter a lot, it is the intrinsic rewards, like a true sense of purpose and contributing to something much larger than yourself, that actually generate long-term satisfaction. If you are only chasing the next paycheck or a fancier title, that thrill is going to fade so fast. Cultivating a growth mindset and finding real purpose in the daily grind is what actually sustains you over the long haul. And beyond our daily work, we absolutely must make time to cultivate awe and wonder, just to put our tiny personal struggles into their proper massive perspective. When you witness something truly vast and beautiful and complex, your own personal anxieties naturally shrink. This kind of transcendent perspective is absolutely crucial for your emotional resilience. So whether it's through spending immersive time in nature, practicing regular meditation, or engaging with wisdom literature and spiritual traditions, exploring these transcendent practices fosters this incredibly comforting, lifelong sense of purpose. It encourages us to look way beyond our immediate, everyday concerns and actually connect with the profound mysteries of our existence. Which leads us to the most empowering takeaway from all of this research. It's a simple, beautiful truth. You can get happier, regardless of where you start. It really doesn't matter what your baseline level of happiness is right now, or what intense challenges you're currently facing. The tools of metacognition, emotional substitution, and focusing outward, they are available to you right this second. So I'll leave you with this. If happiness isn't a destination you just miraculously arrive at one day, but rather the direction you actively choose to walk every single morning, what direction are you traveling today? How will you practice your happiness right now? The architecture is laid out right in front of you. Now it's time to build.